Good morning, ladies. Happy Thursday. I hope everybody is having a good week so far. Thanks for bearing with me that this didn't get put up yesterday. It was a really interesting day. It actually worked out really well, though, because it gave me a really good chance to practice kind of what I've been thinking about and what I wanted to share with y'all today. So I'm going to keep this really short. I want it to be super simple to grab onto, and I want it to be helpful if you're reading or if you're not reading. Either way, it's just something that you can kind of take at face value and incorporate to wherever you're at right now. So chapter 1 is about identifying the triggers that set off your self-sabotage. And, I put the list in the last post. It's things like shoulds, black and white thinking, personalization. It's all of these unhealthy behavior patterns that we engage in that kind of can send us into a tailspin and get us going in the opposite of the direction that we want to be going in toward our goals, toward growth, toward a healthy mindset. So as I was reading through these, a lot of these resonated with me, and I would think like, oh, I do that and that and that. It's hard to pick just one. I do so many of these. And if you're anything like me, as you're reading through or thinking through these, a common emotion that's probably coming up for you a lot right now is guilt. I had been feeling a lot of guilt about recognizing all of the unhealthy patterns and coping mechanisms that I have, how much of myself I see in these behaviors that I don't want to be doing. And I think sometimes we have this tendency to have that automatic response of guilt anytime we know we're doing something that we don't want to be doing. Anytime we are self-sabotaging, our response is guilt. And I think it could come from this underlying place of thinking like, well, if I can just heap enough guilt on myself, if I can just get myself to feel bad enough, that's going to push me to change. That's going to be the catalyst to change. But something I've been learning just in life in general on this whole mindset journey that I'm on is that's not actually true, and it works against us. The more guilt we heap on ourselves, the heavier we are and the more stuck we're going to stay. Guilt is not an effective motivator to change us or to change the people around us. I mean, you can think about any relationship in your life. If there's a person that you think, maybe it's like a parent or an in-law or a sibling or something that you think wants you to change, and maybe they make passive aggressive remarks or overtly aggressive remarks to try to kind of guilt you into changing. There's zero motivation there to change. Change comes when we can truly connect and have a shared sense of empathy and a shared, how do I want to say this? A shared goal in mind. So, okay, here's where this comes back to us and our self-sabotage and moving past it. Kind of visualize yourself in two ways. There's your brain that is firing throughout the day, that's reacting moment by moment as things happen. This is the part that engages in self-sabotage because it's just kind of reactionary, it's automatic. And then there's the you that's the bigger picture, can step back and think. It's like she described it in the first chapter. There's the prefrontal cortex, I think, is the one that is the higher thinking, sets goals, has intentions, has values, has a big picture view of life. So we're operating on these two different planes, right? And when our automatic response brain engages in self-sabotage, our automatic response is usually guilt of why did I do that? Why did I do that? What's wrong with me? Is a question that comes up for me sometimes when I'm doing something I know is not going to help me. What's wrong with me? I know not to do this. Why am I doing it? There's that guilt. So I want to encourage us to leave behind the guilt and choose self-compassion. And here's how I've been able to do that more and more recently. I'm starting to recognize that part of my brain, that automatic part that just reacts to situations in ways that I don't like, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's not trying to work against me. In the moment, all it's trying to do is seek out comfort and safety for me. It's trying to protect me in the best way it knows how. And she says this in the chapter. She kind of sums this up by saying, like, now that we've looked at all these triggers, you might be wondering where they come from. In a nutshell, it's just your brain's way of trying to keep you safe the best way it knows how. Think of it like an overbearing parent who is really frustrating you and like giving you all this advice that you don't want and doesn't align with your values. It can make you angry and frustrated and want to try to make them feel guilty. But if you step back and realize, okay, they're not actively out to get me. Their goal and my goal are the same. They want to see me happy and healthy and thriving. When you can come to that common ground and realize, okay, there's nothing wrong with my brain. It's not defective and it's not out to get me. Like, it wants to keep me safe. It just doesn't understand. It doesn't have that big picture view of like our higher thinking selves when we're calm and when we're rested and when we can process well. It's just not quite on the same page. So I am going to choose to not heap guilt upon myself. When I catch myself doing these things that I don't want to be doing, engaging in these thought patterns, I'm not going to say, what's wrong with you? Stop it. I'm going to say, okay, I'm doing this thing again, and I know that it's just my mind's way of trying to keep me safe. Something about this moment right now makes me feel out of control and unsafe. So instead of berating myself, I'm going to choose to say, hey brain, however you want to say it, however it doesn't feel weird to you. Like, I know what you're doing right now. You're trying to help me. You're trying to keep me safe, and I appreciate you for that. This is not actually the thing that I want to be doing. So let's connect and work together to find a better way. That's how I've been able to have compassion for myself instead of guilt, is to realize like there are these two conflicting parts of my mind that work against each other sometimes when I'm not aware enough to connect them. When I can stop and have compassion, it just totally changes the game. So just think about that. I hope that that kind of illustration made sense. I just want to encourage you to leave behind guilt and choose to just have compassion for yourself and just recognize there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not inherently lazy or selfish or too incompetent. There's nothing inherently wrong with you. It's just a matter of getting that reactionary part of our brains and that big picture part on the same page so that they can be working in tandem toward our common goal. Because our common goal is that we want to grow and we want to be, thriving for ourselves and our families. So yeah, I hope that was helpful, and have compassion on yourself today. And I'll be back with more resources for this chapter either later today or tomorrow. Okay. Thanks, ladies.